we're looking at certain preparations that are made towards certain processes in the country. And usually people are counted. A census takes place. And because of those numbers and that data and information, certain decisions are made. Decisions on how you will spend money as a national government, decisions on how you will allocate, decisions on demarcations so that you know who will administer over particular areas. All of those are done because of this data and information. Now, in 2019, this census took place. There was a result. Now, in 2025, we've seen that according to the court, because of a petition that was made, certain results were nullified. And because of that, certain questions are being raised that because of this nullification, what happened in terms of money spent, in terms of allocations given, would those still remain legal? And what does that portend for the future? Build up to the conversation that we're having this hour. And as we do that, Abdullahi is in the studio with us, not a stranger to the Situation Room, sitting in the hot seat once again. But for all intents and purposes, we must say, Abdullahi, Happy New Year.
Let's all have blessed year.
Indeed. Let's at the very least try, isn't it? Very glad that you're with us this morning. As you know, CT has a proverb. He'll tell you where it's from and he'll tell you what it is. And then you'll tell us how you interpret that.
As usual.
Yeah.
As usual.
Asante sana.
Asante.
Things have been good.
We are in the Gabonese Republic, whose capital city is Libreville. This particular proverb is interesting. To one who does not know, a small garden is a forest.
To the one who doesn't know,
a small garden
is
a forest.
He who has not traveled thinks that the whole world is like his village.
How very true.
There's this guy in Ednah's constituency,
yes,
who says when a person is born in Tula Tula, goes to primary school in Tula Tula, he goes to secondary school in Tula Tula, he goes to university in Tula Tula, he marries in Tula Tula girl. All he knows is Tula Tula. So what you know, if you are not exposed by virtue of opportunity, exposure is through opportunities.
Absolutely.
If a person was not given an opportunity to, if I did not go to school as a camel herder, I will be like my 79-year uncle who has never left less than 200 kilometers square for the last 78 years. I'm not better than him, but
you're just better exposed.
I got an opportunity to go to school and I got exposed.
Yeah.
Then that exposure came with some, token and some experience. So that's why the opportunity of the census my sister just talked about, we're going to indulge. I did some work, is to show that a country like ours is suffering from inequity of opportunities. My dear, elections in Kenya, rather census in Kenya, have a silent underlying undertone on issues of politics in mind and elections in mind. If you look at Kenya, we have had census from 1963. If you look at, let's just do the one of 2009 and the one of 2019, and let's go a bit to Moi.
Okay.
Moi, when he became the president, the central elites, or the quote-unquote Kikuyu mafias, were in charge of the state. And the state, whether it is the Attorney General's office or Parliament in terms of numbers, people in the judiciary, those in the State House, those in the military. So the architecture of the state was under the Kikuyu, people. So Moi became president after Kenyatta died in 78. I think my mother was married in 79, and I was born thereafter. So if you critically look at what Moi did to suppress the influence of central Kenya in Rift Valley, is to make sure that no Kikuyu wins in Rift Valley.
Yeah.
One. Two, there were mushrooming of constituencies, looking even from villages and densely populated places of the Kikuyus vis-a-vis the sparsely populated areas of the Kalenjins.
Okay.
Then that's how he was controlling. There is another work I've done some work on with a friend, that the introduction of illicit brew, the sophisticated one, not the buza, the changa, I saw it Busia, where there is the pot and then there is that small stick.
That Mrija.
That's Morija, not that one. Even from Kibaki time, and even the Wamunyoro guy, the Gachagua, the truthful man, was fighting illicit brew. Why do you think there is only illicit brew in Central Kenya?
But
I want to bring you to.
I'm coming to the same.
Yeah.
So it's about population control.
Yeah.
It's a strategy by the state. And I don't think a director at Kenya Bureau of Standard has the powers to influence or interfere.
Bureau of Statistics.
Bureau of Statistics.
Yes.
On issues of numbers and those things. This is, if you look at the regions that have produced the presidents, have the highest hospitals vis-a-vis population. If you look at, let's say, Muranga, a referral hospital that is serving 800 billion, while that in Nyanza is serving 4 million.
Let's give this context. I want to come back and just give this some context, because then we can jump off properly from that.
Yeah.
All right. So there was a census that took place in 2019, which we know. And just for purposes of, clarity for you, so this makes a lot of sense for you. You come often to Nairobi from Mandera.
And I drive.
You drive from Mandera to Nairobi, isn't it?
1,060 kilometers.
Okay. Now, the High Court has ordered a fresh census for 3 northeastern counties, and it is ending a 5-year legal battle. That one we know. That in 2019, the census was taken, and people said, excuse me, the results of this census do not make sense. High Court nullified the 2019 census result for Mandera, Wajir, and Garissa counties, citing serious discrepancies in the population figures. This was in January this year. The court found that the reported decline in population of the 3 counties was inconsistent with previous trends, rendering the results unreliable, because that's what a census does, isn't it? They see the trends that have been taking place over time, they count, and then they say, well, based on these numbers, it's clear that it's going in an upward or downward trajectory. Now, they said that because we've seen how things have been going in these 3 counties, these numbers that we're seeing, this is just not possible that this would have happened in this manner. KNBS has subsequently been directed to conduct a fresh mini census in the affected constituencies within 1 year. So between January this year and January next year. So we are seeing that these numbers are inconsistent with the way the trajectory should be going. But then why is it such a big deal? And I think that's where you're going. Why is it such a big issue? Because many would say, all right, well, we made a mistake. Go back, do the thing, and let's move on. Is it just as simple?
My dear, we cannot just discuss the case. We have to contextualize it. And where is it coming from? Who filed the case?
This is now where you come in.
Yeah. Who filed the case? Congratulations to the Kenyan government. But now Kenyan government is having 2 types of people. The people who benefit from the state because their people are in power, and those that are outside. In terms of population, how do you measure population? It's number of births and deaths. I gave birth to 12 kids maybe, or 13, then 5 died. That's how you take notes.
You take a step back, first of all, and you consider the number of women, not men, who are of childbearing age. You start there.
Yes.
Once you have that number, you are then able to formulate and give...
Where do you get that data? From the maternity?
Yes.
And the hospital?
Actually, partly from the births, which are documented.
Yes.
There's a registry.
And the girls were documented. And we have a very clear idea as to when girls are of childbearing age.
Now,
that population gives you what you call an indicator of the sort of population you can have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The state, if you look at 2009, who was the president?
Kibaki. Yes.
Well, did he have issues with the census? We didn't. Who was the minister for planning then? Oparanya. Now come to 2019. Who was the president?
Uhuru
Kenyatta.
Yes.
Now, what happens is if you do some digging through the sources in government or those in the know, you realize that there are algorithms in places where statistically the numbers that they have said are not, adding. If you take like Takaba, the census of 2019,
where is Takaba?
Takaba is in Mandera West, Mandera County. 2019, it says that it's 161,701.
Is it a constituency?
Yeah, it's one of the 6 constituencies in Mandera County.
So it said the population was 161,071.
That's the yes.
Okay.
Now, from the figures they said that they're contesting is 96 close to, in 2009 it was 93,300. Now when you add the current one of 2019, which is 61, that they said it's not accurate, they are close to 63,401 families that disappear.
No, sorry, just clarify that.
When you compare the numbers in 2009.
What was the number in 2009?
209 is 161,701.
161,701.
Yes.
701. That was the population
of Takaba West in 2009.
Fine. Now
2019, they said it is 98,300.
Okay. So essentially what you're saying is that if this number changed in 10 years, that you've actually taken 161,701, and when you remove 98,000, how many?
63,401.
So where did 63,000 people go in 10 years?
That is the question they're not answering.
Okay.
Which means almost 10,000 households have disappeared from the face of Takaba County.
Because according to, and this is why I say we need to talk about the reasons why it's such a big deal.
Yes.
Because according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, a household in Kenya today would be comprised of between 5 to 6 people. That's the standard that they give.
Where?
In Kenya. Okay. So now that's where my next question comes to you. That's why you're able to say that 10,000 households have disappeared because of this 63,000.
Yes.
And that's the number essentially that KNBS is giving.
Now, if you look at birth rates in northern Kenya and birth rates in other regions, I'll give you an example of, let's say, 2 classmates, one from Murang'a and one from Mandera. I don't want to mention names. They went to school together, they finished high school together, they finished university together, they're in their 50s. Currently, they're about 55, 56.
Okay.
One, in his house, the ratio is 1 to 10.
He's got 10 children.
Yes.
Okay.
The other one is 1 to 2. And that is the average house in northern Kenya. At 40, the minimum, unless someone had issues with giving birth and other things, an average 40, 45 years minimum children is 6 to 7. But you'll find people with 30 kids from different mothers. Maybe he has 4 wives, each one gives birth to 10. What is our marriage age? It's between 19, 20. I married at 23.
You, the man?
Yes.
At what age the girls married?
Girls are married between 18, 19 and 20. But in the countryside, in the rural Kenya, 17, 16 are married.
14, 15, 16 going upwards.
Upwards, especially the pastoral communities.
Yes.
Whether it is in Pokot, Marakwet, Turkana, Samburu, Somalis, even part of the Kalenjins.
Yes.
Now, if the data now is politically used for accumulation of power and numbers in terms of resources, these numbers don't make sense. Because when you're holding this exercise, who are the people in charge in do? KMBS. So what happened? What were they?
I mean, also, so there's several bodies that play a part. Yes.
So this was there something that was. That's why even I think we will appeal the decision. I'm sure it will not. It can't be held in 1 year because that's the High Court. We have to go to Court of Appeal. We have to go to Supreme Court. This is not an exercise in dust. The end of the exercise of courts in Kenya, it doesn't end at the High Court.
But the High Court has said there's a problem. Yes. Take this issue.
Yeah, I can appeal. That's why we will go to the Court of Appeal.
But what's the problem here, Abdullahi? Because what we are saying is that High Court has said there is a problem.
On what?
Hold on. The petition came to the court.
By who?
They were actually members of this constituency.
Say
members
what?
of these constituencies
Yes.
came out and said,
Yes.
we have a problem with these numbers. They've said the exact same.
Yes, but who said that these are the numbers?
Hang on. They've said the exact same thing you've said.
No, who said that we have a problem with the numbers from Census?
Allow me to finish.
Let me ask the question.
The individuals, or are you saying there's no problem?
No,
because
I'm saying,
the individuals came out.
Who has said that Mandera is 98 and not 161?
The KNBS are the ones who said it.
So
now
that's
this
why
is
we're
what
going to
just
court.
hang on, just a minute.
Yes.
Because we're saying the same thing. That they have gone to court. The petitioners took this to court and have actually sued county governments, sued the KNBS, sued the national government, and said these numbers, based on what we know, the same things that you are saying cannot be the case.
Yes.
So High Court said, okay, let's take this into consideration. They did the investigation, did the due diligence, and they said, actually, yes, in fact, it's not possible that the numbers that KNBS is telling us as a result of the census are correct. So based on that, we are going to nullify the results of this census, and we are instructing that a new mini census takes place.
That's what I'm saying. The government can appeal.
Why? What?
The government, you see.
But why would you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem. We are not getting each other. I'm saying the process of court does not end at the High Court.
But why would you want it to continue if they said go ahead?
I'm saying the government can still go to the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, or they can allow the exercise to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They can prepare. Because, now when you say you're going to hold a mini census, you have to put all the mechanisms in place.
Yes.
You need a budget through Parliament.
Yes.
You need to recruitment exercise. You need now to...
A mini census is a census.
It's a census.
Yes.
Now, the other problem we have in northern Kenya that most maybe other Kenyans will not understand, when you're a farmer, you do not know what troubles a camel herder goes with maybe 200 camels. The other thing is, when are the census done in this country?
Every 10 years.
Every 10 years. Now, when you do every 10 years, what happens if there are drought in northern Kenya and all the families and pastoralists, which 80% have gone to either Ethiopia, Somalia, or Uganda? How do you plan?
That is called migration.
Yes, when people migrate because of the circumstances in the country, that is what happens.
But that is what also happens when you're collecting data. That is what you consider.
Yes, but sometimes it's not. Because there are people from Garissa, Wajir and Mandera who go up to Kismayo. We have two countries, Somalia and Kenya, but at the border of Somalia and Kenya, almost 750 kilometers, are people of the ethnic group.
Yes.
They speak the same language.
Yes.
So when there are droughts in either Wajir or Garissa or Mandera,
they move.
It's okay for us to move.
Yeah.
It's also okay for them to move. Because they come to the chiefs, they are registered, they graze, and then they go back. Now, if, and I'm speaking to you as a camel herder, not just as a journalist. If the camel and the goats and the cows have nothing to eat, and the government did not put in contingency, mechanisms in place, people have gone. Who are you going to censor? The trees? So you see, it's incumbent upon the government to consider all these factors.
They do actually.
But I'm saying, this census reveals what has been happening in the country. That's why I'm taking you back. If you look at the national schools, where are all the national schools?
In Kenya.
Where in Kenya? They're all in central Kenya.
No,
that's not true.
How many?
That's not true.
Majority.
You have national schools in central
everywhere.
Kenya. You have national schools at the coast.
Yes.
You have national schools in Western Kenya.
How many are they?
How many national schools in total? I would have to go and check.
Majority concentrate on certain areas.
No.
Look at the referral. Let me just, if it's about...
That's why they're called
let me give you now...
Abdullahi, that is not entirely true.
Let me now give you this, then you will repeat with your data. Kiambu County has 13 level 4 hospitals, and the whole of Nyanza has 5. Yeah, I want you to repeat that. Kiambu County and Nyeri counties combined have 38 specialty doctors, and the whole of Coast Province has 5. Has only, and 5 of the counties have only 10. From the last MB statistic, Nyeri has 1 level 5 hospital, and the whole of this. So there are data from KMBS that people cannot, why is it that some regions will have 5 with a population of 800, and some regions will have 1 with a population of 400?
But that is the reason why when we had devolution, there were certain components within the financing of the devolved units that was made available so that the very iniquities you're speaking about were narrowed.
Sorted out.
Yes. Now, that is the argument I was told yesterday by a member of parliament when I was at K24. When you are running and competing in marathon, when you say, on your mark, set and go, you must be at the par.
Yes.
Okay? We were 50 years behind. Kenya is a corrupt country, both at the national and the county. So these things are affecting. Because, you cannot cherry pick what to do with government.
Okay.
I'm saying that there are 3 things leaders need to consider when they want to build a country. Fighting illiteracy, fighting diseases, fighting hunger.
So I hear you say the census and the anomalies that appear now are intentionally in place to deny the region development.
I am saying they intentionally done that so that some regions have more resources than other regions. Yes. You've heard in Parliament yesterday.
Did it stop? Can we see that there was a direct line between the numbers that the KNBS results gave in 2019 and the allocation of resources to these 3 counties of Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera? Can we see that there was there a reduction in the allocation of revenue to these counties because of the numbers that we saw presented in 2019?
I have not gone to the Senate and the Control of Budget to get information. So I will be speculating. But this is what I'll tell you. Numbers in terms of census, it's supposed to be projection of development, underdevelopment, how to bring those who are left behind at par. And that's why today Mandera gets the 3rd biggest resources than Kiambu or Murang'a. But what is the poverty level of Mandera and that of Kiambu?
And what is one of the questions that CT perennially asks here is that, can anybody tell us over the last 10 years or 13 years of devolution now where we are, and show us what exactly has been done with the hundreds of millions? Hundreds. Billions that have gone not just in northeastern, anywhere in the country. Show us shilling to shilling in terms of development that has happened
like
with the
now
money that
we
has
have a budget of
gone.
3 trillion in this country. How much goes to counties? About 360.
No, it was just 390 something.
390.
Yes.
After
it was proposed for 420
but they gave 390.
Yes.
Now 3 trillion minus 390, which means 85% are in the national government.
Yes.
Are we asking what the 2.39 something trillion is doing?
We should be. I think we're asking that question every day. Where does the money go?
Doing. When you look at our governance, our problem is the governance we have. And I said here the first time you guys invited me, it started in 1963.
Started before 1963.
No, for us, when we became, when Kenyatta became president, the problem is Kenyatta was a semi-literate carpenter. He didn't know much about government. He was power.
Actually a water meter reader.
No, water meter reader.
Yes.
But complexity of complexity of governance. I do not want people to belittle knowledge.
Yes.
I do not want people to belittle
and
Abdullahi,
Kenyatta was not semi-literate. That man was completely literate.
If he was, Northern Kenya, the temperature of Mandera today is 44. We don't need electricity. We don't need electricity at the generated power. No. If the government of Kenya considered Kenya as one, we will have had solar power and wind power.
At independence, bro.
No, even from then, you plan.
No.
You plan.
But solar wasn't. No, do you know
I am traveling in a road.
When we got to
I am
understanding
traveling in a
solar?
road that is 61 years, still dusty. You've seen my videos.
In 61 years, the road has
we
not
know
has
how
been done.
how you've suffered as a result of that road.
And that is the
Especially when it
consequence
rains.
that is the consequences of not planning. You have been a researcher.
Okay, so now
when you're
I'm
planning for a country,
I understand.
Let me finish and do.
Yeah.
When you're planning for a country, you do short-term plans and long-term plans.
Midterm plans, long-term plans.
The Lamu port was planned in 1974. I wasn't born, but today it's functioning.
Right.
So there are things you plan for 25 years, 30 years, 50 years. There was not much. Mandera County got 9 billion in the first 50 years of independence. But in the first year, we got 10 billion.
In the first year of devolution?
Yes.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, this country, when the president comes from that region, it benefits most. Yesterday we were told, Didi Nyoro's budget chairman constituency is the benchmarking for members of parliament. And then you know who is shouting? It is Junaid and Ichugwa.
Yeah.
What does that tell you as a policy and a researcher? It tells you the budget committee prepared a budget. It was tabled in parliament. Did anyone scrutinize that thing? What do you need to do? You bring a statistician, you bring an M&E person, you bring an economist, you bring people who analyze information, you give them the budget, and then maybe pay them 200,000. Within a week, they are going to give you every projection of every constituency. What does that tell you? It tells you we are just living with the politics of, patronage and doing things without analyzing.
Are you telling me that in the county of Mandera, you don't see similar things with the government of Mandera?
Yeah. Similar on what?
Similar in terms of patronage, similar in terms of favoritism.
That I said in 2 years ago here, every bad manners that was in the national government has been transferred to the county governments.
The reason why I'm going with this, the planning that you speak of, which didn't exist, existed. That is why Northeastern was marginalized. It was planned. It was not accidental.
It was a planned marginalization.
Yes, it was
deliberate by the Kenyan government.
It was not accidental at all.
Yes.
That realization is what brought about the Equalization Fund. When people were having an honest discussion about the country, they said, no. Some places were left behind deliberately, and we must give them an opportunity to catch up.
Yes.
So the event here is the nullification of a census result, right? But there's a lot more that is behind the scenes in terms of what could possibly be happening. And of course, people are asking, why those three? Why would you see that? What has been allocated, has that changed? Yes. But now as we look forward and say, okay, fine.
They're all in Northeastern.
Okay, yes. Of course, they're all in Northeastern. The intended marginalization, and that's where we're coming off from, CT. And I'd like you to just open up that point just a little bit more. The intended marginalization of some of these areas, are we still looking at that being a practice today? And does it affect how then, devolution plays out? How the national government will now allocate resources for these areas?
What is prevalent now is more an absence of astute leadership. Because the moment we had devolution, it was understood by the people who fought for it, that in the absence of that, this perennial problem of marginalization was going to continue taking place. Okay? So resources are brought to your doorstep. Now, how well it is used is determined by the leadership that you have. There's a choice here. We can live in the past and continue talking about the marginalization. Or we can use the marginalization as a reference point to what it is that needs to be corrected. Because a lot of harm arose as a result of that. And having now governments that are run by locals, wherever it is you come from, you want to make sure that the same doesn't happen. Because when you have leadership, even at the county level, there's still marginalization. You'll find it's either a clan issue or a tribe issue or a community issue. That thing percolates and it still goes down there. Now so if you're fighting it at the national level, you must fight it even harder.
Harder at the grassroots.
At the county level, because now that is your county, yours, you and the people who are probably related to in one way or the other. But the issue that I think is at the heart of it, and I think this is what Abdullahi is trying to bring out, is when other people are marginalized and others are given an unequal advantage. The discussion of equity points to that. Now, let me explain something that happened over time. The thing that Central Kenya has had for the longest time was proximity to Nairobi. And as Nairobi grew, what was likely to happen is that just something as simple as the land value was likely to go up. Proximity again. Before independence, when you talked about development and you talked about education, you talk about this service like healthcare, agriculture, the places that were most likely to receive that benefit were those who had proximity to the seat of power, which was Nairobi. And for a long time, they benefited because if you got education ahead of everybody else, when jobs came a begging, your people are the ones who would get the jobs. Now, the whole purpose of looking at a census, I've parked that discussion, is so that you can plan appropriately. Now, Abdullahi is saying that planning didn't. One, when you look at the census and you look at other socio-economic factors that come or should be considered for planning, in many ways that was never considered. This Harambee system that we speak about, let me talk about education. Part of the reason why you will find some people have a disproportionate number of schools is because they had Harambee schools, and in time the government took the schools over, so they became government schools. Yes. Some had been mission schools. Again, where the mission built schools, the government then took them over. When the government took them over, again, where there were a lot of these activities, the advantage was there even before we got independence. At independence, when we became more aware, we suddenly realized, wait a moment, how is it that some of these places, and yet, the place where the missions first landed was in Mombasa. Rabai Mission was one of the oldest. Now, the coast for a long time has also been marginalized. Now, that's where the leadership issue comes in. What sort of leadership have areas had? But let's come to the present.
Yes.
When we seek to have a discussion such as the one we're having, we must have an honest discussion. And the honest is that those who have been in power like to retain it. They want to keep it. Why? They more than anybody else have understood the benefits of having one of their own. And we've associated, our presidencies with goodies that come to your people because your person is the president. Truth be told, if President Moi had not been president for 24 years, many things that happened in the Rift Valley would not have happened. It's just a simple fact.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And before you chime in, Siti, as we talk about in the current present time, 2019 census, one would also beg to ask, as the leaders within the counties that were affected, what role did they play in making sure that everything happens well? Because they have a role in making sure that their people get the services that they deserve, including correct census.
First of all, is Northeastern better than 2013 or 2012? Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Mandera today has over 5,000 employees. Employed
through
by
Devolution.
Through Devolution.
Yes.
Mandera has more than 58 doctors. Mandera has more than 18 specialized doctors. Mandera is, budgeting for its development. Do we have issues of either embezzlement or this? Yes. It's an inherent underlying factor in the country. It's a problem everywhere. And that's a societal problem. Because when the leader, I'll give you like some examples, neighbors, Rwanda and Singapore. Why do you think they're better than us? Even though the economy I think of our countries is that of Rwanda. Kenya is a very rich country, very, very rich country. But 30% of the budget is stored in the presidency, in parliament, and treasury. That was said by, it's stolen.
It's stolen.
Budgetary, planned thuggery in budgetary.
It's budgetary theft.
Yeah. It's not just theft. It is stealing the future of our people and killing people. It's more or less a budgeted murder. Because you're stealing money meant for medicine, for cancer, for roads. You build a substandard votes. My car falls in it. I die in it. Whose problem is that? Now, that is a societal issue. This is a society. If you want to know Ndu,
yes,
I was in Nairobi for 3 years and I was driving my old Nissan. If you want to know how mannerless Kenyans are and how shameless they are driving the streets of Nairobi, they blame politicians. Let's say you have an interjection where one road there is a jam, but the other one is open. What do you need to do as a person with common sense? Allow these other ones to pass. So because you're not going anywhere, they don't do that. And the idiot he's having a very big tie. You know what I call educated fools.
Yeah.
You can go to school but still be a maniac. What defines a person is not because you have gone to school. It is the self-conscious. That you don't want to harm to other people. You want to respect other people. You want to behave like this. You want to dress like this. Those things you don't get them from school.
No.
It's a personal decision. Now, if the society, I was driving, after a guy who was driving a V8, my car is an old diesel petrol. V8 is like 18 million and the car I'm driving is like 2 million. Ile chupa ya maji walikunywa.
Yes.
Na ile banana walikula.
They tossed out the window.
He did not have the manners to have the logic that put these things in your car and wait for a dustbin. And maybe he's a PhD holder. How did knowledge help you? So we have a societal. We must be. Ruto was a chicken seller, but he's still behaving like a chicken seller when even he became the president. When you become a president for a country,
Abdullahi, how do chicken sellers behave?
Behave, yeah. It's a
you
unit
rush
for
around.
behavior.
Like when I was selling milk,
Yeah.
I was a milk vendor. I told you.
You run from one place to the next.
You run from one car to another. When you're selling chicken and eggs, you run from one car. I'm sure you have driven through Nairobi or in Kenya. There are mothers who are struggling. They bring you mangoes. They bring. What do they do?
Bananas.
They run around. In government, you don't behave like that. In government, those mothers are doing business. I was doing business when I was a milk vendor. In government,
You're not doing
it's
business.
not a place where you're doing business. In government, it's a place you manage resources prudently in the benefit of providing service to your people. In fact, today, Ruto and his children they've joined the billionaires. He used to talk about dynasties like some years ago. Today he has joined the dynasties. His drive, people are alleging that his daughter has 32 million Bentley car from London. We don't have just allegations.
Allegations. We do not know this, so we cannot.
Look at the billionaires. So what you're saying, whatever you're seeing in Census is just the scratch underlying a competition of a country where has ethnic groups that one wants to be suprema. If you ask my honest opinion, the number one community in this country is Luyas. You know why? I lived in Busia. I saw how they give birth. They are more or less like the Somalis. It's on the media that people, especially the ladies, our sisters, I'm not trying to insult them, in central Kenya were complaining that the men are not working so that they sire children. There was a time in central people were saying there are no ECD students or children, they're pupils. So these are things that were designed when Moi time. Uhuru came.
Abdullahi,
I'm trying to make the connection.
I'm trying to say.
Allow me to correct you.
Okay.
Allow me to correct. Yes, please allow me.
It's okay, you can correct me.
I can. Okay.
Because I'm only experiencing opinion.
Remember the proximity that I spoke of with the city.
I know.
It also means that when new ideas come in, you are the first to absorb them.
Yes.
Let's talk of family planning. Okay? Before the advent of this illicit alcohol that caused havoc, mostly in central Kenya.
Yes.
Okay?
Was it deliberately planned by the state or it was just...
Conspiracy theory would have us believe that the state planned it. But
Yes.
there were individuals who were actually manufacturing that alcohol here in industrial area. Some in what they call Kariobangi light industries.
Just
They were being in the full glare of the government. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So which means the government allowed that to happen?
No. If I want to be a conspiracy theory, I may think that way. But today I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist. The point I'm trying to make is this. There were many factors that contributed to the low birth. And it is true. Schools closed. It is true. It is true. So essentially, one could even argue that the population started declining. It is true. You could argue that. And your argument about the western part of Kenya and the increase in population, that is also true. See, truism is supported by fact. If someone says this is true, usually...
Show me something.
Yes, and one of the simplest ways of gathering data is by observing. When you observe, you can see and you can tell. So what you're saying is this, Abdullahi. When the government doesn't do what it's supposed to do to protect its people, then inadvertently you could say they have purposed to have the wrong done. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. And you know, when they want to retain power, they bring chaos, like what's happening with KK. It's a deliberate Historians have written about it. Ndu,
Yes.
I sat in class for 1,500 hours. That's 2 years. Okay? I have also trained my mind not to conform. If I am not hungry in the morning, I don't
You
eat.
will not eat. Not just because they said you should have breakfast.
I don't know. Food, for me, I eat food so that I survive and do what I want, so that I don't become hypoglycemic, so that my sugar level doesn't go down, my brain doesn't collapse. But I don't live in this world to eat. That is not the purpose why I live in this world. Now what I'm saying is this. I do not want to have a conformed discussion wherever I go. This country, we are not supposed to tap each other on the back. Last night, it rained heavily in Nairobi. How many Kenyans slept outside? In the cold. Because of failed leadership. Because people stole their money. Because they have no hearts. This country, as I told you, is very rich. Iniquity means if you... That's why you hear Ichungwa say he has gone to alliance.
Actually, not say. He reminds us very often.
All out, isn't it? Now, what he doesn't know is that those of us who went to Mandela Secondary School or Wajir High School have equally brains.
True.
Because of his... If Ichungwa was born in Pokot or he was born in Turkana, a place I went to call Lomelo, between the Turkanas and the Pokots, I told you there are over 500 households that have no school and chief.
Yes.
If Ichungwa was born there, will you have attended the
Alliance?
Well, it depends if you got the grades. If you got the grades.
No, there are many who get the grades and did not go.
Well, you could apply.
Yeah.
You could apply, and if you got the grades.
Abdullahi has a point.
The simplistic thinking is that one. The simplistic way of just saying, if he gets an A, there are people who went to Alliance and got C minus.
What we're saying.
So the grade, sometimes they don't matter where you go.
But there's a reason for that, Abdullahi.
What I'm saying, I'm trying to tell you is this. It was because he was within the proximity of a certain area.
He was in an ecosystem.
That allowed him to benefit from that. A lot of people from Ramo attended Alliance. A lot of people from Mandela Alliance and Stare. The governor of Mandela, Wajir, was in Stare. But that's not, just because you attended Stare doesn't necessarily mean that you're better than any other person. You just got an opportunity and a grade. There are those who went to University of Nairobi and today they are collecting garbages in Mandela.
Are we seeing that there's a difference in terms of how people have been comporting themselves after devolution?
No. What I'm saying is this.
I need you to answer this question.
Because
and there's a reason why I'm asking.
The child who was born in my village.
There's a reason I'm asking this question, Abdullahi. Have we seen that there's a difference in how people comport themselves? And I'm saying this specifically after devolution. By your own admission, things have changed significantly after devolution. There has been money that has been sent to the counties.
That never was there.
That was never there before.
Yes.
And that the perennial complaint was that, well, resources don't reach here. Fine. Devolution was introduced. Counties got bosses. Individuals were, you said 5,000 people are now being hired by the
all the roads in Mandela tarmac.
Now we have the government essentially has now said, fine, let's open it up. But in 2025, we still hear the same complaint that was there in 1985. In 1995.
The people of Kenya decided to have not the government. The people of Kenya decided they are going to have a model of government.
Yes, and the government implemented that because of the fact that they have the powers and the tools to do so.
Yes.
The government
implemented it.
Yes.
Nobody else can implement. Nobody else can implement.
I do not want your words to be put in my mouth.
No,
I want to speak my mind.
No, but I'm saying very clearly.
What I'm saying, from what I understand about governance.
No, what I'm saying very clearly.
The people of Kenya have put structures in place.
Abdullahi, please understand what I'm saying. That the constitution indeed held together by the sovereign, but the implementing authority of the constitution is the government.
Who gave them the powers?
The people.
So first, now, Kenyans have decided they are going to have this model of government, and this is their taxes that are going to be managed by people.
You're determined that we shouldn't bring the government into this discussion.
I'm saying,
yes.
No matter how thin you slice it.
I'm not trying to slice it. I'm saying the country has population that have decided they are going to be governed
in a certain way.
In a certain way.
And we agree.
We agree. We have collected resources.
Yes.
Now, the people we give the resources, both at the national government and the county government, have not fulfilled the dreams and the aspirations of the Kenyan people.
So they've not done it right.
They have not done it right.
Okay, there's an admission.
But now, there is a difference between having a good system and having money, and then people managing it, abusing it. Kenya has one of the best constitutions. Okay? 256 articles, 18 chapters, well written, very simple English, with statutory laws. There is nothing complex about this constitution. Remember, I went to court and I was presenting myself.
Yes.
But I made it my business to study it. The problem we have is a societal problem. That those in power, because you're blaming only Ruto and the MPs, these are about 400 people, 500 people. What happened to the 56 million?
No, you have a point there, Abdullahi.
What happened to the 56 million?
You have a point.
Now, what they did is, any state, if you study politics, even from government from medieval days, the government does not always do anything good for the people. It doesn't work in the interest. Whether it is Trump doing that in America, whether it's the new Prime Minister of Canada who was a banker in London, or whether it is William Ruto here. It is the people who are supposed to be alert. The people. Now, you saw what happened in Kisii.
You know, we've moved from this.
No, we are coming. So all these things are interrelated.
I want to take us back to what we're discussing about the discrepancy.
Yes.
You see, how do you explain 2009 to 2019 a decline in the population
By 63,000.
Yes, no, even if it was 2,000, when every indicator that is used to gather this data, there's something, let me explain to you. There are two methods that are often used. There's the extrapolation method and the cohort component method. The cohort component is the more detailed one. This is what was used in 2019. Okay? How then, using this method, and you've looked at births, at deaths.
So you're speaking to us as a researcher?
Yes.
Yes.
As migration.
Yes.
And you can see that the number of people who are getting married are increasing because more and more people are able to, children who are being born and more. And then you want to present that there's a decline in the population. How exactly do you arrive at that?
Balambala in 2009 was 94,029.
Yes.
Balambala in Garissa County in 2009 was 94,029. The same Balambala in 2019, when even KNBS record shows that an average house has 7 families. In 10 years, it is 32,257. That's why I'm telling you, development and planning for resources is secondary in Kenyan census. First of all, we are one of the most successful countries in terms of conducting census.
Yes.
The last, I think 6 times
True.
now.
True.
6 times now.
Yeah.
So in that way, we are good. But this census were all dependent on who was the president.
And of
what
course,
regions they wanted to favor.
And anybody who would give a reason and say, oh, maybe there was a typographical error. Hold on. Would the question then would be, well, if there was a typographical error there, why did we not see such errors in other parts of the country?
Not only that, why were there no measures in place to detect it in the field? He's a researcher. You don't just do things.
So, beyond face value, Abdullahi, what would you say would be the reason why such a quote-unquote mistake was made?
It's not a mistake. I told you it's by design.
That's why I said quote-unquote.
Yeah, it's not a mistake. Let me tell you, there is something that the Kenyan government cannot take away from the people of northern Kenya. The camel is a very tough animal. So are the people.
Yeah.
So we are very resilient people. Now, when you say Somalis are very small or this, I can authoritatively say from the raw data. I don't speak from speculations. From the raw data. In the last census, Luyas were number 1. Somalis, Kikuyus, and Kalenjins were competing for number 3.
Who was number 2?
We were competing for number 2. Okay. I'm telling you.
Okay.
So this nonsense of saying number 6, how can... My father gave birth to 19. And when the other day we were talking, my father, his siblings, and their children are 81. Moses Kure has 2 kids. I'm 1 to 10. Actually, and every other family is the same.
You're putting across the same argument that those who have wanted to prove that their population is the most in the country have put across. Statistically, it may be proven not to be quite true because nobody talks about a declining population when you're a certain number, as in central, and the birth rate goes down. That population will be declining, whether you like it or not. By the same token, when I told you about birth, you look at the number of people who are of birth of what? Yeah,
Age.
who are able to give birth.
birth.
What age? Okay, and then that's where the extrapolation comes in.
Yes.
You look and say, if you look at the possibility of people who would die, attrition, and look at the possibility of those who died, but and so forth. I'm simply saying, the science and the understanding of populations is not difficult.
Very simple.
In
Yes.
10 seconds, Abdullahi,
Yes.
where must we be looking?
What I'm going to say is that, first of all, I would like Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to go to the hospitals in northern Kenya and to go to the hospitals in other regions and then compare. Not this statistical algorithm
Of counting things on a tablet.
This negative thing.
Yeah.
Kenya is a country. You remember the last few months, the rift of leadership in central Kenya and Somalis. Duale this, Duale that. Dinyoro saying so and so saying this. So there is this silent war between the Somali community and the Kikuyu community.
It's not silent.
Yeah. No, now it has been amplified, and it's because one business. Somalis have come to Nairobi. If there are few, why are they almost taken everywhere? Everywhere. Kilimani is gone. Isli is gone. South Sea is gone.
That isn't a
Nakuru
factor
is
of
gone.
numbers. That
And
is a
those are-
factor of the ability to pool resources
Yes,
and
together.
to understand how to utilize
Yeah,
it.
but why don't we see 6 Kenyans or 6 Kikuyu sitting somewhere making stories while 6 Somalis or 10 Somalis are in a hotel if the population is less?
Questions
We'll
that
have
we need
sent
to
one,
continue
and two.
having. And, this discourse is important. And, we had 10 seconds, Abdullahi. But look, conversations must continue. These are things we must continue bringing out
but
into the
census
outward.
in Kenya, development is secondary. It's politics and elections.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Always a breath of fresh air as usual. Asante sana, Abdullahi
Thank you for
Alas.
having me.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.